Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Tuesday morning, and it is May the 24th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open. I did pop the link in there to what we were talking about yesterday, and this is a bunch of web pages. It's a website called Joy to You and Me from Robert Burney. And Robert Burney is he's a spiritual teacher. He's a codependence therapist. He's an author. He's written a book called Codependency, The Dance of Wounded Souls, which I would like to get a hold of. But a lot of his, he's written some stuff there from his book, so you can sort of take a look and see what his book is about. But it's really good stuff. Hopefully everyone's getting something out of it. I know I am. And we've been on this website for about 3 weeks or more. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm not a counselor or a therapist or anything like that. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows. I just want to be one more voice speaking out against abuse, to be another voice out here for people who have survived abuse and for adult survivors. And this is my healing journey here in the morning, one child abuse survivor to another. And so you have to listen at your own discretion because I'm talking about abuse on all my shows, and I think it's really important that people be aware that, what makes you uncomfortable, Like abuse is a sensitive subject, and a lot of people may find the material uncomfortable. So for me, I've just had to deal with this my whole life. So, it doesn't bother me to talk about it. But I know that a lot of people, if you haven't heard a whole lot about abuse, if you just haven't, seen the realities of it, which I would hope not, it could make you uncomfortable. It can also trigger survivors who are just starting their healing journey, right? So you have to know what's good for you to listen to. And if the show makes you uncomfortable, you have to turn it off. That is your discretion. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone listen to the show with you, an adult who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening or not, because there's a lot of adult content on my shows. It's ultimately really all about stopping child abuse, but, for young people, if you have an adult listen to the show with you, they can help you make a decision whether you should be listening age appropriately, right? So we'll get right into this. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And I just wanted to continue going through some of these web pages, web pages from Robert Burney, B-U-R-N-E-Y. He's written some really good stuff here. He has this particular section that we're looking at now is the next section on his website. It's called Grief Process Techniques. And the grief process, that's what we're looking at. And he says, this is a quote from his page, he says, "We're all carrying around repressed pain, terror, shame, and rage energy from our childhoods, whether it was 20 years ago or 50 years ago. We have this grief energy within us, even if we came from a relatively healthy family, because society is emotionally dishonest and dysfunctional." And then he says, grief is a very different experience from being depressed. While we are grieving, we can still appreciate a beautiful sunset, or be happy to see a friend, or be grateful to be sad. Depression is being in a dark tunnel where there are no beautiful sunsets. So that's what he's written there. Really quite interesting. I really like a lot of his stuff and what he's had to say. He says, our mental health system not only does not promote healing, it actually blocks the process. The mental health system in this country is designed to get your behavior and emotions under control so that you can fit back into the dysfunctional system. So that's kind of interesting. I just, he's a codependent therapist. So I'm not really, I'm not ever discouraging anybody from going to get help, like whether it's a counselor or a therapist, so everybody's different. And I know lots of people who are survivors, which I will not name names, who are in therapy, and it's done them some good. And I also know some other survivors who have had some problems with some of their therapists and had to move on to different therapists and stuff. So, it just depends. We're all different. We need different things. And there's a great website, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, the ASCA.org, ASCAsupport.org. That's the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program. That website is awesome. They do talk about, the whole idea of if you have a counselor, you find a counselor or therapist, and they don't seem to be working for you, you might have to go get another one, because not everybody's going to click with everyone, And they may not specialize in what you've been through. Like they said, if a person has, suffered child sexual abuse, and the therapist actually doesn't really know how to help a person in the area, then the survivor isn't going to get a whole lot of help there with that particular issue. So that's why it's important to know what you need, and we have to really be our own best advocates, and I believe that, and I've seen that on many websites. We we have to kind of know what we need in order to get help, right? So we have to think about these things and, reach out and get the help we need. I know a lot of people group support. I do. I like online group support just because I can squeeze it in there when I need to, and I haven't been doing that because I've actually been just way too busy. But I used to belong to a child abuse survivor group. There's a lot of awesome people there that were very helpful, and I liked it because I could just go online and at my own convenience, to talk to people if I was feeling down or just needed a hand, and just wanted somebody to talk to. It was great. So he goes on to say here, drugs that are designed to disconnect you from your feelings, the healing process. Mental health professionals who need to have them, to have you see them regularly in order to be financially supported, need to have you be dependent upon them, need to keep you a patient in order to survive. And I mean, this is just from him, like Robert Burney saying this. I don't even think I would say that. I think that therapists and counselors get into this field of helping people because they really do care or they find an interest in it. And I don't think that most people would keep somebody down just because they want to take money. I don't believe that at all. There's so many people out there that need help that they probably can't even take on as many cases as they'd like because there's not enough. You know what I mean? There's so many survivors and so many people who need help. But that's just his opinion. You know what I mean? Like that's not mine. And I think people say, okay, as far as trust issues go, I never did trust counselors and therapists. You know what I mean? When I was growing up, because our parents told us that they would just hurt us and they would just get a hold of our information and use it to hurt us. And so we grew up believing this, and so I never ever thought that it would be a good thing to talk to somebody about my past and about my abuse. But now I've actually talked to quite a few counselors and therapists just in what I'm doing, and over this last year and a half. And these people have all been very genuine and very nice, and they've been very helpful just by their kind words and their encouragement to keep moving forward and keep going. And they seem very, very interested in everything that they're doing. And so I think it's just a matter of finding one that actually works for you and suits what you need and clicks with you and that really cares. That's the thing, because there are people out there, lots and lots of people that do care. And I've met quite a few psychiatrists and therapists and whatnot, counselors that have really, I just thought they were decent people, really good people. See, so they changed my mind about the whole thing. So I kind of, I don't have that view that Robert Burney has there. But he says, welcome to Joy to You and Me, and this is his website. And yesterday we were looking at the grief process techniques, and he says the way to stop reacting out of our inner children is to release the stored emotional energy from our childhoods by doing the grief work that will heal our wounds. The only effective long-term way to clear our emotional process, to clear the inner channel to truth, which exists in all of us, is to grieve the wounds that we suffered as children. The most important single tool, the tool which is vital to changing behavior patterns and attitudes in this healing transformation, is the grief process, the process of grieving. And this is all from his book, Codependence, Dance of Wounded Souls. And he says, we are all carrying around repressed pain, terror, shame, and rage energy from our childhoods. Whether it was 20 years ago or 50 years ago, we have this grief energy within us, even if we came from a relatively healthy family, because this society is emotionally dishonest and dysfunctional. So he says, in order to do the inner child work, we need to be willing to do the grief work. And emotions are energy, and that energy needs to be released through crying and raging. We need to own our own feelings about what happened to us. And he says, we need to own our right to be angry that our needs were not met. And grief is energy that needs to be released. We need to give ourselves permission to feel our pain, sadness, and rage. And we need to own and honor the feelings. Part of grief work is simply owning the sadness and the anger. I was talking about that yesterday, because I don't quite agree with that, as far as my own personal situation goes. But I know so many survivors and people out there who have probably done all kinds of therapy and, have gone through a lot of different types of therapy. And they probably have heard that before. So it seems to be a commonality that we have to own all the parts of the whole thing. And for me, it just doesn't make any sense to do that, because I'm just different. Everybody's different. For me, I just prefer to say that, no, that didn't belong to me, and I refuse to take that on. The only thing I will do is allow my little inner child to grieve for what she lost out on as a child and what was done to her, like myself so long ago from the people that hurt me, parents and one of my siblings mainly. And, I put the blame where it goes. I'm not taking responsibility. So in order for me to own it, it's almost like if you own something, you all of a sudden have to be accountable and take responsibility for it. And I really don't want to take the responsibility for that. That was them doing that to me. I certainly had no cause, of that, you know what I mean? So that's why I don't take responsibility for it, because for me it doesn't make any sense. But I know a lot of people out there probably believe that makes sense, and maybe to them it does. To me, it doesn't make any sense to own that stuff. I don't want to own that. I was talking a long time ago on one of my shows, and actually quite a few of my shows, and just saying that, I had a necklace put around my neck as a child, and it was just loaded with all this garbage that my parents had put on it, grief and sadness and pain and horror, misery, and my sibling, and I was wearing this necklace around my neck, and it was so heavy, and I was carrying it everywhere with me. It was kind of like owning all that stuff, right? And finally, I threw it away. I just envisioned myself taking off this necklace that was so full of so much evil and hatred and horrible stuff that was done to me as a child. And I said, this is just ridiculous. I'm carrying it around. I am throwing this away, man. This does not belong to me, all this evil and horror. And as soon as I did that, I felt a lot better, because I felt a load come off that I had been carrying my whole life. I thought, man, that did not belong to me. That is so ridiculous that people would think that I should carry that thing for the rest of my life. I don't think so. That to me, that made more sense, to walk away and walk away with a clean slate. And that means I get to start over. I get to write my own life script now. I don't have to continue on in that destruction. I don't have to continue on in that life script my parents set out for me so long ago, and my siblings. And so, that's why it was important for me to split away from them, because they still expect me to play that life script. It's pretty much what it all comes down to. A few shows back, maybe, 10, 20 shows or somewhere in there, I was griping with my family and really going into it, to talk about how they are today, the rest of my siblings and my dad who's still living. And I just, because I was angry that day, and I really wanted to be able to express how I feel about them and how they treat me, still even today as a 45-year-old woman. And I thought, man, I don't have to I don't have to play that life script out anymore. I've got a new life script, and I've had a new life script for 4 years now, but they haven't been a part of it because they're not on the same page that I'm on. You know what I mean? Like, they're not healing and not trying to change their dysfunctional behaviors, their codependent behaviors, and all this other emotional sabotage, which they love to do, because we grew up doing that to each other, emotionally sabotaging each other and attacking each other verbally, and the siblings, and my parents were attacking us in every way, but the siblings were still very much holding each other all in contempt, and everybody in contempt, and and then try to be sort of want you to still hang around with them and do stuff with them. Right? It's like, okay, no, I don't think so, because I'm not going there anymore. They just, they're not on the same page as me, because they haven't done any work to try to heal themselves or try to get some help, and we never did that as a family, so we can't even come together on it. And so that's the whole idea of me writing my new life script, which I've already written. It's done, you know what I mean? And I'm adding to it as I go, and it's great, because I'm healthy. I'm so much better than I was. I'm feeling good about life, and for the first time, in this 4-year period. And here's my dysfunctional family still wanting me to play this life script out. So it's like every time I see them over the last 4 years, some of them, my brother hasn't talked to me for 6 years, so that's okay, because he's just, I don't know, he's an angry, grumpy person anyway, and I don't really want to talk to him anyway. But my dad and my sister, like, every time I see them, it's like they hand me my old life script, and they expect me to play it out. And I'm like, hello, I'm not playing that one anymore. I already got a new one, and I already tore up the old one, so forget it. So that's why I kind of have to cut them off. But it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is for some people, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't continue to play that old dysfunctional role that they had me playing for so long, which was just to take their garbage and not say anything and just be a loser, because that's what they used to tell me on a regular basis. My sister would be like, you're just like our brothers, you're just a loser, you're just no good, you're just a drug addict, you're just this and that, because I was a drug addict until I was 21. And, she would be like, you're everything Mom and Dad would say you are, you're just a bad kid, and you deserve everything you got coming to you. And so many of my siblings used to tell me that. But they were abused too, so, I mean, hey, their minds were just as warped. And, we were not doing well as a family, so nobody was supporting each other, nobody was being supportive. Now, my sister today doesn't do that. But what she does do is hold everything against me if I won't go shopping with her. So if I won't go shopping with her, which people would say, why don't you just go shopping with her? I can't shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what she wants. She wants to be able to just pick you up when she wants to. She won't even make a plan. She won't make a date. She won't say, okay, next Saturday, let's go shopping. What she does is she phones and she says, want to go shopping? I want to go shopping right now. And I'll be like, well, I'm not ready because I've got plans, because I have a life. I've got a sweetheart. I've got things going on. I'm also the Canada Regional Director of Dream Catchers for Abused Children. I work full-time, and I'm busy. And so if people want to do stuff with me, they got to book it in there because I'm busy, man. And I rarely have time to drop things to be spontaneous with people. And I don't even mind once in a while, but not all the time. And she won't phone and say, hey, let's next Saturday, let's put it on the calendar. Let's go do a day. Let's have a sister day. No, she won't do that. You know why? Because she wants to be able to manipulate everybody's lives. So what she does is she phones and she says, I want to go shopping right now. And if you're not ready to drop your dinner and everything else that you've got going on, or possibly even out doing errands yourself, and just go shopping with her, then you just hate me, and you don't love me, and you don't love Kimberly. She just goes into these tirades of this ignorant stuff because you won't drop everything to do something with her. And she won't make a plan or a date, so you have to basically at her beck and call and whim, right? So it's kind of like, I'm like, no thanks. But anyway, that's just that whole garbage, you know what I mean, that she's expecting me to play out all the time. So I had to cut them off, you know what I mean? Even though she's not, even though she does still tell me stuff today, like, I'm not doing what I should be doing, and that I'm kind of putting me down. My dad's always been like that. He's always run all of his children down, unless he wants to brag to a church member. Sometimes when he's talking to church members, like his own people, like church people, he'll tell them stuff like, oh, I loved my family and all this garbage, right? But then when he's talking to you, he runs all his family down. Right, he's talking to me. He'll be like, "Well, your mother, she was just a whore, and she was a slut, and and the boys were just evil." And then sometimes he's schizophrenic, right? So sometimes he'll sit around. He'll say, "Oh, I know my family hates me, my children hate me, my mother hates." See, there's no normal conversation. We can't even have a normal conversation. Like our family actually has never had a normal conversation, really, as a family. So, there's no sense in even bothering with it because they're expecting me every time they see me to pick up this life script that my parents wrote for me so long ago. They just hand me a copy of it as if I'm supposed to play it out with them, and I refuse. I'm done with that. You know what I mean? Like 4 years ago, I got myself a new life script, and it's so much better. You know what I mean? For me, and I had to look out for myself. And if they're not willing to try to go on a healing journey, that's their own deal. I can't as a matter of fact, I kind of did actually talk to my sister about coming on this healing journey with me, but everybody has to be ready at their own time. And, she wasn't offended or anything, but she was just like, well, she kind of just blew it off. And I thought, well, that's okay, because, if she's not ready, that's fine. But for me, I had to do it, you know what I mean? And I had to get myself where I could enjoy life and I could feel good about things, you know what I mean? And so sadly enough, that's what happened, and I had to cut my family off, but that's the way it goes. But that's too bad, really. So he says your grieving is a very different process, right? Then it's a different experience from being depressed, right? He says the deep grieving work is energy work. Once we can get out of our heads and start paying attention to what is happening in our body, then we can start releasing the emotional energy. He says when we get to a place where the emotions are coming up, when the voice starts breaking, the first thing I have to tell people is to keep breathing. We automatically stop breathing and close our throats when the feelings get close to the surface. So he says at that point, the technique is to locate where the energy is concentrated in the body, and it can be any place from head to foot or head to feet. Much of the time it is in our back because that is where we carry stuff we don't want to look at, or in the area of the solar plexus, anger or fear or heart chakra, pain, broken heart, or chest sadness. So then the individual breathes directly into that place, visualizes breathing white light into that part of the body, and then starts breaking up the energy, and little pieces of energy start getting released. And these balls of energy are the sobs. And this is the terrifying place to be for the ego because it feels out of control. It is a wonderful place to be from a healing perspective. So he says empowering the healing is going with the flow. Inhale the white light, exhale the sobs. And sobs, tears, snot from the nose are all forms of energy being released. And you can be in the witness of watching yourself and controlling the process at the same time you are in the pain and releasing it. So this is his grief techniques, right? The grieving techniques. I don't know if I so much need that, you know what I mean? Because I've been grieving for so long. I kind of sort of do know how to do that. I've been grieving since I was a little child, you know what I mean? So I've been grieving and grieving and grieving and grieving. But I think at one point, especially noticeably, like in my 30s, when just too much stuff had happened and had gone on, I wasn't able to grieve properly, and I realized that I needed to because I'd lost my mother. That's what I was talking about on Friday, or I mean maybe even yesterday. That my mother, I had lost my mother, I had lost my baby and my boyfriend all within 3 months. It was a bit much, you know what I mean? Like maybe I had a miscarriage, and then I left my boyfriend because I freaked out, and I needed to get time by myself, and I really needed to do some work on myself. But that's not why I left. I was angry at him because he wasn't there, but it wasn't his fault. He was up north. He was like 2,000 miles north of the bush. He couldn't get a plane or a helicopter out of there, and so it really wasn't his fault. Like, he wanted to be with me, but he was stuck up there up north, right? So it wasn't his fault. But the thing is, I was very down and very depressed. So I took off, and then my mother died 3 months later. So I lost my boyfriend, the man that I love, the man that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I lost my baby, and our baby, and my mother within 3 months. And I really needed to grieve. So when I came back, I was 31 years old, and I came back to Canada after my mom's funeral, and I was in my apartment, and I grieved for like a whole year. I still worked. Like, I worked full time. I put in a lot of hours, actually. I was putting in like not just 8 hours. I was putting in quite often 10 hours, 12-hour days. And then I'd go home and I'd just drop and I'd just grieve, and allow myself to grieve this stuff out. I think everybody has their own way of doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to feel like there's this white little energy light going in to dissolve the energy pain stuff. I think that I understand why he's saying this, and I understand the process of what he's talking about, but everybody's different, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think I'm able to grieve quite well myself. I've been doing it for so long. It's kind of, I know when I feel better, you know what I mean? Like, I grieved my best friend for a long time. My best friend was killed when I was 15, and I was 15 actually going on 16. She was 16 going on 17. She was a year older than me, and she was hit by a car and killed by a drunk driver. But she told me 3 months before, this is in my book, A Life of Death, The Redemption, if anybody wants to get a hold of it. All the proceeds are going to Dreamcatchers for abused children, so I hope everybody knows that. Like, I didn't want the money for that book. I want the money to go help stop child abuse, and that's exactly what it's going to do. So it's wonderful, and I thank everybody who's gotten a copy of my book. It's wonderful. But that, I did detail that because my best friend was my angel. She was she was always saving me. She was always protecting me, where my family wasn't. My parents were hurting me, and here was my best little friend who lived across the street, a couple of houses down from me. She was really like my sister, way more than my own family, because my family was hurting me, and she was being good to me, and she was always very nice to me. And she got killed in a car accident, and she told me 3 months before exactly what would happen. It's kind of bizarre. It was a dream that she had, and her boyfriend had the same dream, her fiance, and they both dreamed the same dream, and she told me about it. And I told her, be careful that night. It was going to be prom night when she had that dream that she had died, been hit by a car. And it was prom night, and she actually did get hit by that car. So when the phone call came, I already knew what had happened. It was just like, oh my God. So I had to grieve that. I've grieved so many people, the loss of so many brothers and so many people, and I've been okay to do the grief work on my own. But I know that there's probably people out there that that need help with it. You know what I mean? I'm still grieving my childhood. I think that's the work that I'm doing really right now. And about 4 years ago, when it was at its most serious, because I needed help, because I realized that if I didn't get help, that I was either going to continue to plan my suicides, or I was going to self-injure. I was going to allow the abuse to destroy me, and so that's why I decided to fight this fight and make a commitment to myself. That I would heal. I would allow myself to heal, and I would get the help that I need, whatever kind of help it is. And not allow myself to end my life like my brothers. And play this role out that my parents had set up for me a long time ago. And so, it's, I've been able to do a lot of grief work on my own without the help of people telling me to use white light to do this stuff. You know what I mean? I don't need it. Really, I have a higher power, and that's my God. And I'm 4 years old. The most awesome thing happened to me ever, and that was I was spiritually saved. Spiritually, I was saved out of hell, and I'm very thankful to my God for that, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I channel, I allow God to work in my life, and that's why I think that I'm as good doing as well as I am. But everybody's different, and that's why I think that this stuff is really interesting to look at, because everybody's different, and everybody needs different things, you know what I mean? And everybody feels differently about certain things, and what works for somebody else might not work for me. What works for me might not work for somebody else, and I think that's why the healing journey is really our own. We have to tailor it to meet our own needs so that we can succeed. And I think I've talked to so many survivors out there, and when you go, and if you haven't checked out a whole lot of survivor websites, there's just tons and tons of them out there, and it's quite interesting to see what these survivors have done, in their healing journey, and what really worked for them, and how they allowed what they needed to have happen so that they could have a good life and heal. It's quite interesting because most of it's different. Everybody's kind of done, what they needed to do, and it turns out quite often that's quite different from what other people are doing, and so it's interesting. It's very, very cool, and I think it's awesome. And people are, these people out in front of me saying you can do this. Like 4 years ago when I started my healing journey, and especially 3 years ago, I had really started to open up and reach out, and people, I couldn't believe how many people were reaching out to me when I started to reach out. And it was online, you know what I mean? Like just online. And people were just like, you can do this, you can do this. And I've met some of the most wonderful people in the world who have been through so much. And, yet here they are, beacons of hope, saying you can do this, And, because they're the example. They're like, look, we did it. We've done it, so you can do it. So that's what I like to do, is just pass on to other people. Hey, other people have done it, and they help me move forward in my healing process and my healing journey. And now that's why I want to do these shows, because I'm still on my healing journey, still working through things, and thought, why not? I'll just try to be a voice of encouragement for people to keep going, and keep looking for what it is that's going to help. So that's why I don't mind looking at all these web pages, because even though they're a little bit different, than what I'm really doing through my spiritual healing journey, it doesn't matter, because it's just more information, right, for me. Yeah, it's great to have everybody here. That's nice. Thanks everybody for being here. I have Gypsy Witch here. Gypsy Witch, my good friend. I'm so glad that you could be here, and I just love you dearly. So we'll just finish up with this, looking at this grieving process thing. It says, by controlling the process, I am referring to choosing to align self with the energy flow, surrounding to the flow, instead of shutting it down as the terrified ego wants to do. It is very hard to learn this process without a safe place to do it, and someone who knows what they are doing to facilitate it. And he says, once you have learned how to do it, then it is possible to facilitate your own grief processing. So he says the anger work is also an energy flow process. The bat, the tennis racket, bataka, pillow, whatever, is lifted over the head as you inhale, and then as you hit the pillow, you expel the energy. In doubt, a grunt, or saying, cussing or cursing or whatever, a scream, whatever words come to you. Inhale, exhale, open your throat to say whatever needs to be said. And I guess that's just really releasing it. That's what I've heard before, is people have said, well, you can punch a pillow if you just to get out some of the anger and allow yourself to go through these things. I didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do that because I thought, man, if I released my anger and my energy, I'd have to go to a soundproof room, because I live in an apartment complex, and if I started screaming and hollering and cursing and shouting and punching and pounding, the neighbors would probably think somebody was getting killed over here, because I actually chose to let out my rage a little bit differently, and that was to deal with it in very small pieces and very small, short periods of time during the day. And I allowed myself to feel some things that I hadn't felt before, and allowed myself to say some things that I hadn't said before, and did it that way. So it kind of came out a little bit more on an even keel, instead of just letting it all out at once, which I wanted to do. But I thought, man, I'd have to go out into a field somewhere, in the middle of nowhere, to do that, because people would think that somebody was killing somebody, or I was being killed or something, because it would be so loud. And that's exactly the truth, right? And so I actually decided not to go that route, because I live in a small apartment here in the middle of a big city, where there's just within me, right around me, there's at least 20, 30,000 people. So really, it's just not a good idea to be screaming in your apartment, because people will call the police, right? Which is a good thing. So I thought, no, I can't do that, but I'd have to get a soundproof room if I was going to do that. But I mean, everybody needs to do what they feel is necessary, and that's the big thing. We have about a minute left, so we'll take another look at this. We're only about halfway through there, and we'll finish this up tomorrow, the portion on grief. So thanks to all of you for tuning in this morning and listening to all my shows. We almost have 29,000 shows listened to. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to what I had to say, and I think that's awesome. And I didn't know how long I'd be doing this. I started out in November 2009, and I thought maybe I'd do it for a few months, but I had quite a few people listening. I thought, well, I'll just keep going. So thank you all for tuning into my shows, and I hope that you get some help, and that you allow yourself to suffer on in silence and sadness on your own. We certainly deserve so much better, and that's really why I wanted to do these shows, was just to say, never give up, do not ever give up. There are better days, but we have to look for them, and we have to work at it, and sometimes it's pretty dark before those good days come along. And so that's why I say you got to hang on and do not allow yourself to be destroyed by this abuse and by your past. And make sure you get some help no matter what it is, and even if it's just calling a crisis line, but make sure you stick around with us and heal and allow yourself to have a good life, because we certainly do deserve it, and we do deserve it, right? Just like everybody else. So have a good day, everybody.